The next speaker will be moving a bit more local and down to Africa. So this is Richter Nii Amarfio. He's from Blue Economy and Government's Consultant, talking about spatial planning in Ghana. Yes, welcome.
Thank you so very much. My name is Richter Nii Amarh Amarfio. Apparently, this is happens to be my master's degree thesis, research work. And before I start talking about what I mean by marine spatial planning in Ghana, I think that's what she was talking about UNCLOS. And UNCLOS gives us, the developed countries, the mandate to ensure technology transfer, particularly to developing countries, to bridge the technology gap. Prior to independence, Africa was divided among colonial masters, and our resources are still divided. Ghana currently have gold, we have oil. Interestingly, most of it go to developed countries. We have fishery that we do not control. And our maritime space has completely been taken over. We have everything that goes into the BBNJ treaty. We have fiber optic cables. We have oil and gas. We have fishery. Yet we benefit very little from all of that. The ocean basically has no borders. So when we pollute in our part of the world, fisheries, migratory species like tuna, that we all consume across the world, are also affected by the pollution from our activities. So as much as we are concerned, it behooves on all of us globally to be concerned as to how the water resources in Africa is managed. It is not an African thing, it's a global thing. It's not a Ghanaian thing, it's a world thing, that we manage our oceans responsibly. And we transfer technology and build capacity in Africa so that we will all benefit from the resources that God has granted us. So, I wouldn't bore you with all this. I just would want to say that like I said, we have a number of resources. What we have not been able to do well is how to spatially plan our ocean space. Ghana has a fishing industry that has 37 tuna vessels, industrial vessels, deep freezing vessels, about 47 active trawl vessels, about 300 inshore wooden vessels, and over 12,000 canoes. About 30% of the Ghanaian population is dependent on the fishing industry. It contributes some 1.5% to our GDP. So fishery is so important. It is a local thing, but you have an ocean space that currently hosts a number of activities, and you have big, giant industries like tallow, like ENI, that are into offshore exploration of our oil resources. You have an IMO declaration that protects 500-meter radius of all activities relating to oil and gas. What it means is that the poor fisherman is no longer able to get close to those fishing grounds that he used to have. So if you do not plan the ocean space and you continually allow activities that are mightier than the ordinary fisherman, you create a huge challenge. And it's one of the reasons we are calling for a proper planning of the maritime space. So we have various definitions of marine spatial planning. And in the very simple term, Just as we have land use plan, we should have ocean use plan or sea use plan for every country. And probably we should have a bigger one for the entire Gulf of Guinea large marine ecosystem area, so that the entire Gulf of Guinea area would be properly planned and protected. The Marine Spatial Plan serves to reduce conflict and strengthen inter-sector collaboration. Its demand for greater planning and protection of the maritime environment and its resources, and it has to grow in tandem with the rights of usage of the marine space. We all agree that the marine space is becoming more and more engaging. Now we have deep sea mining and all of that going on. So it means that we also have to do more to upskill the protection of the maritime space. When it comes to legislation and governance of the maritime space, it is possible in developed countries to govern what happens in the maritime space. It is highly impossible for a country like Ghana to deploy the resources that are required to protect our maritime space. Because to be able to keep our Navy and Air Force over our waters all day round is a lot of resources that we need for other sectors. That's why we need collaboration in order to be able to protect our maritime space. Ghana has a very short coastline. It's just 539 kilometers, and we have 200 nautical miles within our EEZ. Because of our activities, we've extended our continental shelf, so we have 350 nautical miles in terms of the continental shelf for Ghana. Like I indicated, Ghana has multiple use and bubbling economic activities within Ghana's marine environment, and subject to key challenges, particularly environmental challenges. Let me also remind you that we have an inland water body or water bodies that had completely been destroyed by mining activities, because we have a number of people who are mining directly in our water bodies. So there is a presence of heavy metals that have been released through mining activities and that had washed into the ocean. So not only are we as Ghanaians struggling with it, all persons consuming fish are likely to suffer from activities that they may not have contributed to. That's why we all have to contribute to finding a solution to challenges that affect our oceans. Marine Spatial Plan has generated a great deal of national and academic interest. Marine Spatial Plan is presented as a strategy for addressing use issues in the maritime space. And that is one of the reasons I'm here. That we need to look at how to help developing countries like Ghana to put up an agenda and push for a Marine Spatial Plan. Not just within the maritime space, because we are talking about blue economy, and that includes our inland water bodies. I probably come from a country where we have a lot of factories, but we need to have a proper waste management regime so that we manage our waste properly. We need greater integration and coherence in Marine Spatial Plan governance strategies, which is viewed as a sustainable way to solve the current maritime governance concerns, such as fragmentation and future resource needs. In practice, however, there is a lack of clarity and agreement on Marine Spatial Plan sustainability, both in terms of Marine Spatial Plan governance and sustainable resources. The previous speaker was just talking about the absence of fisheries within the BNJ discussion. And that is one of the major issues, because the big players in the sector really believe that they are in charge. The challenge is that in Ghana now, wherever we find oil, we'll put our rigs there. The key issue is what happens to the fishery and what happens to the ordinary fisherman like me. So my objective was to investigate the possibility of Ghana developing a Marine Spatial Plan, examine the use of geospacing to establish Marine Spatial Plan, and assess the significance of creating marine reserve to protect marine ecology and ecosystem. And I would want to say that from my study, I realized that it is important for Ghana to have a marine spatial plan. There's no dispute about it. Because of the number of activities and how bubbling those activities are. If we do not have a marine spatial plan, some activities are going to be completely taken out. Let me say, for instance, that when Tullow wanted to establish their oil activities in Ghana, it took civil society a lot of effort to get them to come up with the environmental impact assessment. Even that we had a lot of queries. Between 2009 and 2021, 2011, 21 hunchback whales came beaching in our shores. That was when oil activities had picked up. 21 hunchback whales. Currently, people have questioned the impact of seismic survey within our maritime space. So there are a lot of issues that are associated with non-fishery activities within Ghana's maritime space, and not just Ghana, but other African countries that are catching on the oil activities because that holds a potential of giving African countries the needed resources. But if these things are not done properly, we are likely to lose our marine environment, we are likely to lose our fishery. It's interesting that Ghana hosts part of the most important spawning areas for tuna. And so, like I'm saying, if we do not deal with these problems as a global issue, it may happen within Ghana's EEZ or within Ghana's territorial waters, but the impacts go way beyond just Ghana. It affects almost all of us. So the significance of the study, I think I have elaborated that a study will contribute to sector growth by providing platform for long-term development of numerous economic activities and generating incomes and jobs. It will also aid in maximizing the use of the sea, which seeks to aid in strategic planning, promoting appropriate and sustainable resource use, space the development, dispute resolution, increasing stakeholder involvement, and supporting the environmental economy. So basically, these are some of the things that led me into studying the impact, the need for marine spatial planning and its impact on our maritime space. So my scope was to focus on how marine spatial planning can ensure a sustainable marine environment within the maritime borders of Ghana. But as I'm saying, it's now beyond the maritime borders of Ghana, because in actual fact, there are no maritime borders. The maritime borders that we have are only imaginary. I remember one of my Boeings got missing. It was found in Texas. So they sent me an email from Texas with my Boeing, which I lost in the Ghanaian water. So there are no maritime borders. We only have imaginary maritime borders. And that's why we must all concern ourselves with what happens in some other jurisdiction. So basically, I did my literature review. So, in considering implementation of marine spatial plan, the following interests are to be considered: marine conservation and sustainable use, fishing of all types and aquaculture, shipping, including commercial goods and passengers. And I must conclude that Ghana has increased marine ship calls because of our oil activities, and there is every chance of increased ballast water activities, which may also come with invasive species. Thank you very much for the time.
Yes, thank you very much for the interesting presentation. I think we have time for a question, if anyone would like to ask a question to this presentation. Yes, there's a hand raised there.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for a very, very interesting presentation about the situation in Ghana. I think it's very valuable input to this conference going on here in Trondheim right now. My question is about the ocean mining issue. How long, for how long time has that been going on? And are there global companies, or are there ownership from Ghana responsible for these activities?
Well, until 2007, when Ghana discovered oil, the major maritime activity was fisheries. We had gas pipeline, which was also quite recent, and then fiber optic cable. But after Ghana discovered oil, and in 2009, when Ghana started commercial exploration of oil, there are chances of fight for maritime space. So it's been quite recent. Ghana is new in the oil activities. Ghana is new in the fight for maritime space. And that is why it is early days yet when we need to think about having marine spatial plan.
Okay, thank you. I think we need to move on to the next speaker now.
Thank you.
Thank you.